All right, we are going to be looking at variables in Python. So let's get started right away. So there are a few rules when it comes to variables in Python to keep in mind. So let's do this. Go rules of variables. It's hard to type. I got this busted finger, but that's fine. I do this for you guys. All right, so one of the first rules is you cannot have numbers, spaces, or special symbols for your variables. Your special symbols are stuff like this. Don't do it. You can't have them. Another one is you want to avoid naming your variables things that are Python terms. For example, you want to avoid naming your variables things like string or int. And I mean, the easiest way to know if it is a Python variable is if you're using any sort of coding what's the word I want? Coding environment that is like dedicated for Python or has Python kind of built in or is utilized for it. You'll see that it lights up green. So int lights up green. If I type in string, lights up green as well. If I type in float lights up green as well. Whereas if I type in flat, it doesn't, because flat is not a dedicated Python variable. Some other good rules when it comes to variables is you want to keep in mind that it utilizes dynamic typing. So Python uses dynamic typing. And so dynamic typing is basically you can reassign variables throughout your code, and it will overwrite it and become the new assigned. So I'll show you an example shortly, but in some coding languages, you can't do this. I think C# is like that. If you were to assign your name, for example. So if I created a variable, I called it name, and I said my variable is Gav, perfect. And so if I print name, I'll see Gav. But I can also then reassign it. So I go name equals not Gav. We're good, and I print my name again, and it's now not Gav. So I can reassign it. That's what dynamic typing is. Whereas, again, some programming languages, I would get an error there. Okay, so let's get rid of this because it's not overly relevant right now. All right, so let's take a look at variables. So I can assign variables, for example, I can assign it to an integer or a number. I can then do stuff like this. I can take A, and I can add A to A, and I get 10. So I can add my variables together. Let's say I had B and I assigned it to be a float, so 1.6. I can do A plus B. Oh, by the way, upper or lowercase does matter. And actually, that's a really good rule for Python variables as well. I mean, the standard is you use lowercase. Some global variables you will do uppercase, but typically you want to do lowercase. So A plus B, 6.6. Cool. And you can also do fun things like this. So let's say I create a variable called my income, and it equals 100,000, for example. And I create another variable called my taxes, and it equals, let's say I pay 0.2, so 20%, give or take. I can then create a formula called, let's say it's called net income is going to equal my income, and we're going to times it by my taxes. By the way, that autocomplete there, I'm just pressing tab. So when within Jupyter Notebook, if you press tab, it will show you the different variables or what you've written before that has that right name. Enter. And now if I do this and I check out my net income and I press print, I know, actually, sorry, I guess it wouldn't make much sense. But that would be the amount of taxes I'm paying. So I'm paying the 20%. So I should probably let's actually rename that. So let's go back up here and let's call this net taxes, because that would actually make a lot more sense. Press that. Now if I run this, net income, go away. Net taxes, 20%, or 20,000, which makes a lot more sense.